Hey, Brittany.
Hi, Rachel.
Welcome to the Tuttle Twins podcast, The Way the World Works.
Yay.
Now, on this episode, I wanted to talk about bankruptcy and why I think bankruptcy is beautiful. But first, or it can be, if you know the word, it's kind of an ugly word.
What does it mean? Break it down for us.
Okay, I will break it down. Bankruptcy is basically when a business fails and they go out of business and they declare bankruptcy. And there's several different types of bankruptcy, but just for our purposes, they go out of business, they have to sell everything. And it can be a very sad time for a business when they fail, because failing is not fun. Mm-mm. And there is some effort, you may have heard of bailouts, which is when the government steps in or some entity steps in and tries to flood them with enough money to keep them in business so that they don't have to go out of business. They have still failed, but they receive a bulk of money to keep them going.
It's kind of like you're getting rewarded to fail.
But yeah. So to illustrate the concept a little bit, I have written a short story just to kind of help you understand it from like a lemonade stand level. So,
story time hour with, or not
story
hour,
time.
Story time with Rachel.
We're going to give this a try. So, let's imagine a bustling, friendly neighborhood called Lemon Drop Woods. So everyone's very active in Lemon Drop Woods. They love to go jogging or walk their dogs. They mow their lawns and they push baby strollers. And then when they get thirsty, they stop by Thirsty Street. Now, Thirsty Street is known for its many lemonade stands run by the enterprising children in Lemon Drop Woods that live there. So, one lemonade stand belonged to a kid named Bernie. He's a boy who liked big ideas, but not big effort. And across the street was Nick, a kid known for his hard work and quiet determination. So Bernie's stand was called Bernie's Big Bad Lemonade. And on the first day, Bernie spent some of his allowance to buy lemons, sugar, and a table. Very nice table. Now, he got a nice allowance from his parents, and there was even enough in that allowance to get a big light-up sign that said the biggest, baddest lemonade on Thirsty Street. And the rest of his allowance, he blew on video games. Now, at first, he was really excited about his business. "I'm sure to get rich quick selling lemonade," he bragged. But Bernie wasn't very good at running a business. Bernie got bored waiting for customers to show up, and so instead he went inside to play his new video games. "I'll just leave a jar for people to put money in," he said. Well, no one stopped by, and he let his lemonade sit out in the sun too long and it turned nasty. Now, across the street, Nick was quietly running Nick's Artisan Lemonade. He squeezed out new lemons every morning, measuring the sugar carefully, always served it ice cold, and he was also working on some craft flavors for once he could get enough money for some more ingredients, like herbs and other fruits. Now, by the end of the week, Bernie had a problem. He had sold almost nothing. His supplies were running out. He had no allowance left. His sign fell over and needed some repair. His lemons were brown and all dried out, and his pitcher was totally empty. "Selling lemonade is so boring," he said to Nick when they passed on the street. "I'm not going to do it anymore." "I love it," Nick exclaimed. "I really liked your sign. Could you sell it to me since you're not going to need it anymore?" Well, Bernie was happy to get rid of it, and he got some more money for his video games. Nick picked it up for a fraction of what Bernie paid for it, took out a few letters, patched it up, and made it say "The Best Lemonade" on Thirsty Street, and it attracted even more customers for Nick. Now, with the increased business, Nick was able to buy fresh basil for a basil lemonade recipe, strawberries and blueberries for a lemon berry punch, and those new flavors were a big hit with all the parents walking by on Thirsty Street. Now, fast forward 20 years, Bernie is happily designing video games, which he's very good at. And Nick has turned his lemonade recipes into a beverage company and distributes it all over the country. All because Bernie went bankrupt, reallocated his capital equipment to a better positioned operator, and reinvested into something he was better at. So, this is why bankruptcy can be beautiful. And what do you think about that?
So explain to us why it ended up being beautiful, maybe how it ended up benefiting people outside, like non-business owners, benefiting us consumers.
Well, the parents walking by got better flavors because Nick was more enthusiastic and more invested in the business. So that basil lemonade, that sounds actually pretty good to me. I think I
Yeah,
might try
basil,
that.
it sounds delicious.
Yes, yes. So, and then Bernie was able to move on and do something he was more suited to, his video games or whatever. So, the way that this is demonstrated in real life, you hear about this a lot with like insurance companies, maybe banks. They make loans to people that are not good risks and they're not able to pay back the money that they were lent. And the banks get in trouble. They lend out too much money. They can't get it paid back. And you hear about banks being too big to fail. Mm-hmm. In other words, they have failed as a bank, but the government swoops in with a lot of money, a bailout, and keeps them going even though they're bad at banking, right? So at the end of the day, the government and the taxpayers lose a lot of money. The banks are basically rewarded for bad behavior, like nobody gets fired or anything, and nobody learns anything, you know? And maybe these bankers ought to, you know, try something else in life. Maybe they should open a lemonade stand instead of trying to be a banker. So, What a bailout does is it wastes resources. And I have kind of an alternate history. Let's try an alternate history with our lemonade stands. And imagine that instead of going bankrupt, this happens. So, right about then, when Bernie was complaining about not liking the business, Bernie's parents walk over. And they're very worried. "Oh, Bernie," his mom said, "you can't fail. You're too smart. You're too talented for this to happen. You're too big to fail," his dad added, looking at the lemonade stand. "This neighborhood needs Bernie's big bad lemonade." So Bernie scratches his head. "Really? I'm not sure anybody really wants it." "Well, we'll fix that," his mom said, handing him a crisp $20 bill. "We're going to bail you out. Use this to buy more lemons, more sugar, and a fancier sign. You'll be back on top in no time." So the next day, Bernie returned with supplies bought with his parents' money, hired his friend Billy to make him a new sign that said, "Bernie's Lemonade, now badder than ever." He even bought a big stereo to play music so people would notice him. "This could work," Bernie said hopefully. But guess what? The music's too loud, drives people away, fancy sign didn't fool anyone. By the end of the day, Bernie still hadn't sold a single cup of lemonade. Worse yet, he spent all of his parents' money on things that didn't help his business at all. And Nick is still saving up for his basil and strawberries and blueberries. The end. See? That's much sadder, isn't it?
It's much sadder, but it's because his parents kept bailing him out, right?
Yeah. Doesn't work in the end. Sometimes when you fail, it's better to cut your losses and move on rather than to double down. You know? Mm-hmm. So...
And it's better for us as consumers too, right? Because we get a better product. You know, if you and I were hired to do a job and we were bad at our job, no, we would get fired, right? Anybody would. Anybody would get fired. You wouldn't get all these chances. Yeah, eventually. But sometimes when businesses, especially when businesses are protected by the government, then they don't have that chance to fail. And failing is good. I think of all the things I tried to do that I was bad at or not great at that was actually probably good that I quit while I was ahead, you know? No, quitting isn't always good either, but...
quitting isn't always good. Sometimes, you know, never give up. You'll hear that too, but it just depends on the situation. Sometimes it's better to reallocate resources and cut your losses and try something else, you know? And that's the same in an economy. That's the same as in your life. So
it's kind of like the concept that we've talked about before, creative destruction. You know, things go under, but because of that, better things are kind of grow out of it. Just like the better lemonade stand. So yeah, that's
Phoenix
really good.
Rising from the ashes. Yeah. So just keep this in mind if you hear about, bailouts and bankruptcies. It's not always a bad thing. I mean, the short term of it is it can be painful because money is lost and, you got to start over again and that can be hard. But in the long run, maybe it's all for the best.
And we are talking about businesses going bankrupt, right? Because I know it is a little different for
That's
individuals.
Right.
So I want to make that
right.
differentiate, because there is such thing as people going bankrupt, like individuals or families, and that's a little different. So what we're talking about here is bankruptcy for these businesses, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
No, That's great. And I love that you wrote a story. So thank you so much. Rachel, do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Love to know if this generated any discussion, what you think, what your thoughts are. And have you ever heard of bankruptcies and bailouts on the news? And what questions do you have?
No, that's great. Yeah, please interact with us. There's the Tuttle Twins Facebook page, so we'd love to hear from you there. Even like messaging on Instagram or something. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your questions. So we will wrap it up there. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. And until next time, Rachel, we'll talk to you later.
All right. See you next time.